Well, don't get mad at me, but I'm beginning the Unit 3 test review, the Greek portion of it, with some dates. The Archaic period is basically the 6th and 7th centuries. The Classical period is basically the 5th century. Remember how those centuries work? You go up a number. We recently finished the 20th century with all the dates in the 1900s, right? At least it seems recent to me. The 5th century is the high point of Greece, from the defeat of the Persians in 478 BCE to Athens' defeat in the Peloponnesian War in 404 BCE. Do not try to memorize those dates, but do memorize 5th century. The late classical and early Hellenistic periods are 4th century, and the rest of BCE is Hellenistic, up to the defeat of the last Macedonian emperor at the Battle of Actium. And then it's on to Rome. Next podcast. What kind of vessel is this? What was it primarily used for? This was not a required image, but you should recognize the shape and the red figure technique. This slide should be self-explanatory. This one too. Oops, no labels, just as there are no labels on the AP required image. But actually the question tells you that this is the Athenian Agora. What was its primary function? What were the major buildings in the Agora? And specifically, what is that round building called? Hint, it's the same name as a similar shaped building on the second story of the treasury at Petra. What do those gray paths represent, and what purpose did this path serve? Where did it begin and where did it end? What is a stoa? What is the building complex circled in purple, and what function did it serve? What are these two works? Hint, the one on top is Hellenistic Greek, the one on bottom is late Roman. What content do they have in common? And a related question, the work on the upper left is probably an allegory for... Think about the political role that Gigantomachy played in Greek culture. We talked about that. What are these works called? I'm looking for the Greek terms for male and female archaic statues. How do they differ? What was the function of the male statue? So you need to know both of these temples, and they are both College Board required works. Once you've identified your buildings, and yes, there will be images on the test, you need to know some dates, which century at least. You need to know your architectural orders and your basic architectural terms. When and why were these buildings constructed on the Acropolis? Who were their architects? Yes, these are hard names. These hard names are on the test too. You need to know the difference between your architectural orders. Pay attention to the capitals, because that's the easiest way to tell. The architrave, frieze, and cornice are the three elements that together form the entablature. That's a tough one from an old AP exam, but I warned you that you need to know some of these terms, and I just gave you that answer as a reward for watching this podcast. Basically, the entablature is all the stuff between the columns and the triangular pediment under the roof. You will also need to know the name of that triangular area formed by the roof and the cornice. I think you'd be wise to know cryoglyphs and metopes, but they don't show up on this test. What is this work? What was its function? What story is it telling? It shouldn't be tough, I hope, to figure out why the College Board paired these two sculptures. If you don't know, find out. As always, you want to know when and in what era they were made. What story are they telling? What is the subject of the works, especially the work on the right? Make sure you know what the Greek word in the title actually means. Where were they placed? What artistic techniques do you observe? What do they have in common stylistically? What do both demonstrate especially clearly? It should be easy. In what art historical period was this sculpture made? What were some specific techniques that the artist used to add realism to this statue? What were these figures, and why are they on the pediment of the Parthenon? Hint, what is the pediment? For that matter, what is the Parthenon celebrating? Where are we? What culture does this represent? What kind of a site is it? How did it function? What is the term for the platform, and what was its use? Whom do the figures in the frieze represent? The modeling on these figures shows the influence of what other culture? Hint, take a look at the drapery or the clothing. What would have covered these friezes in the past? And note, the same answer is true of friezes in Egypt, Greece, and Rome as well. You've seen those garish reconstructions. Well, I stuck this in the Greek review section because of its subject, but where was it actually found, and in what art historical period was it made? Why would the owner of this home have displayed this kind of work? I think you'll be able to figure out the answer, so I'm not offering more of a hint than that. What is happening in this scene? By using more than 1 million small tiles, what was the artist able to accomplish? Again, I think you'll be able to figure out the answer. What was probably the original inspiration for this work, which is now lost? That is, the inspiration. What technique is used to give the work a three-dimensional perspective? And as a hint, look particularly at the horse's legs. What purpose did that technique serve artistically? What impression did it help create? And now we move on to our Rome review.